Yo, what's good, y'all? It's your boy Jay back at it again, and today we got Monkey D. Luffy is a Zen master by PK Buggy. Y'all know what the deal is. Follow me on both Jays here and Jays there. Get tapped on my socials, and without further ado, let's get right into it.
Zhuangzi said, "The perfect man employs his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing, it refuses nothing. It receives but does not keep." In other words, this is to live without hang-ups. That is to say, to be able to drift like a cloud and flow like water, seeing that all life is a magnificent illusion and there is absolutely nothing fundamentally to be afraid of.
I love One Piece because you could analyze it over and over again and still find new ways to connect it to real life. From politics to psychology and even pop culture, the inspiration behind the manga is incredibly diverse. Personally, I'm a big fan of One Piece's philosophy.
One Piece is great, I ain't gonna lie. One Piece one of them ones. Even though I got issues with One Piece when it comes to pacing and how at certain points it just drags like hell, I can admit One Piece is built different. To have a single series with one continuity go for almost what? 30, the manga released in like 1997, right? It's been almost 30 years in serialization, going on and on and on. I can respect that, bro.
Writing, and I've noticed a particular concentration on Eastern philosophies such as Hinduism and Buddhism. What we're going to be looking at today is a specific branch of Buddhism known as Zen. In simple terms, Zen is a practical form of Buddhism with a direct approach to abstract concepts. Its core teachings involve meditation, mindfulness, spontaneity, and radical acceptance. These are concepts that appear frequently in One Piece, whether at the height of battle, in the frivolity of crew shenanigans, or whilst facing intense emotional baggage. I believe that Zen Buddhism provides the means to a deeper understanding of Eiichiro Oda's pirate epic and what it's ultimately trying to say. When you think of a Zen master, I bet you picture a calm, graceful, sage-like figure. I doubt that you imagine a rambunctious, hyperactive kid wearing a straw hat.
But the thing is, Luffy seems like the type of person, that's what a lot of these shonen MCs are tapped in. Like, they would be tapped into metaphysics and spirituality. They would 100% be tapped into that sphere, which is why they are so successful, what they pursue.
At first glance, Monkey D. Luffy appears to have a lot more in common with an iPad kid than an intellectual monk. But in spite of his personality, Luffy is essentially a microcosm for Zen Buddhism. Once that becomes clear, you'll see that a handful of other elements in the narrative fall in line with the way of Zen too. In this video, I'm going to be exploring that by taking a comprehensive look at the characterization of Luffy, depictions of enlightenment, and the general spiritual identity of One Piece. Before we get into One Piece, we first need to establish some background on the topic at hand. Zen Buddhism is essentially a fusion of two schools of thought. To understand the practice, you first need to understand Chinese Taoism and Mahayana Buddhism. Starting things off with Mahayana, this is the most popular form of traditional Buddhism. It emphasizes the path of the Bodhisattva, a compassionate being that strives to free others from suffering. Mahayana also teaches that anyone can attain enlightenment. Accessibility to enlightenment with empathy as the primary motivator is the key principle of Mahayana Buddhism. Taoism, on the other hand, is a philosophy based on the esoteric writings of Lao Tzu. Tao is often translated as the way, and it refers to an underlying spiritual force that binds all things and guides our reality. Taoism is all about living according to the flow of the universe. It stresses the importance of simplicity, spontaneity, and wu wei, which means effortless action. To cultivate balance between yourself and your surroundings, you must trust in the Tao and embrace things as they are. Although it's important to note that Lao Tzu said the Tao is impossible to describe with words. Zen shares that same ineffable quality. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it, but to truly grasp the weight of what it means, you have to figure it out yourself. So just keep that in mind as we get further in the discussion. Anyway, Mahayana's introduction to China is what led to the development of Zen Buddhism after blending with Taoist ideas. Eventually, it made its way to Japan where it became...
This is like when I was in the AP World last year, boy. You learn about all types of histories and religion and all that.
Formalized into what it is today. Alongside Shintoism, Confucianism, and Shin Buddhism, it's one of the most popular belief systems in the country. It retains all the fundamentals of Mahayana Buddhism and Taoism, but it distills them into a practice that is more concerned with doing than it is explaining. Zen Buddhism is personal. It's a direct connection to the here and now. Its wisdom only comes from being in tune with yourself. You don't need to perform elaborate rituals or follow religious texts. You need only to listen and pay attention. The Zen master is compassionate and harmonious. They have no pride, no attachments. They don't teach, they lead by example without making any effort to do so.
That's Luffy for real, I ain't gonna lie. Luffy's kind and compassionate. Is he selfish? If he's selfish, yeah. But Luffy's also one of the kindest, most compassionate people you ever meet. Luffy will quite literally hear your whole backstory, say, I do not give a fuck about that. I don't want you to join my crew because I'll mess with you. And that's the thing. People be like, Luffy picks the best of the best. But Luffy wanted Nami as a navigator before he knew she could, you know what I'm saying, draw maps and navigate across the ocean. He wanted Robin as a crew member before he even knew she knew about poneglyphs. Like, Luffy picks you off pure vibes, not your abilities.
Only direct insights without elaboration. Oftentimes, they'll use short metaphorical parables called koans and let their students consider the implications for themselves. The Zen master does not cling to what has been and what might be. They look at our existence, which appears complex, knowing that it is anything but. They are loose yet steadfast, free yet disciplined. There's nothing divine about them. They are ordinary people who happen to see things a little more clearly than others. Monkey D. Luffy is an average kid from an average village with below average intelligence. He's ordinary, unsophisticated, and straightforward. Yet Oda also portrays him as one of the most enigmatic figures in the story. Almost every character Luffy crosses paths with finds him to be imperceptibly special. I'm sure he's had this effect on you at one point or another too. I remember watching One Piece in the beginning and thinking Luffy was boring, annoying even. After he eventually won me over, I couldn't exactly say why. There was just something about his naive disposition that was genuinely inspiring. Luffy carries himself like a fool, but if you spend a little time with him, you'll realize that he truly has it all figured out. It's not entirely conscious, it's just who he is.
It's like Goku, Luffy, Naruto. All these three characters have similar personality types. And at surface level, you think these guys are fools, right? They're loud, they're not very smart. You know, they carry themselves like goofballs. But when you really look deep into their characters and who they are, you'll figure out that these niggas is like some of the most tapped in characters when it comes to metaphysics and philosophy. Which is why, like I already said, they are extremely successful in what they seek out. Did I press the play button? My fault, hold on.
In my opinion, Luffy acts as though he's enlightened. In One Piece, freedom is kind of the same thing as enlightenment, thematically speaking. More on that later. For now, let's examine what exactly about Luffy's personality correlates with Zen. First, Luffy has no ego. He's extremely humble and has little self-importance. He views himself as an equal to pretty much everyone around him. Any praise thrown his way is usually met with modesty or outright resistance. He rejects moral authority. He doesn't preach or force his beliefs onto anyone. He doesn't try to change people. His being changes them. He encourages, supports, but he doesn't instruct. Luffy has no attachments. He doesn't cling to materialism or even his own desires. While he is fueled by lofty dreams, he's perfectly okay with letting them go. What he's not okay with is passivity. But if he were to die without making it to Laugh Tale, then he would die without regrets. In other words, he lives without expectation. He accepts that plans change, nothing lasts, and whatever happens is how things should be. In chapter 2, there's a great scene that effectively illustrates this point of view.
Open a whole new world.
Yeah, man. The reason Luffy is so successful when it comes to influencing people because he doesn't try to influence. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't try to chase trying to help people. Because Luffy being Luffy changes people. He doesn't try to force his ideology on other people. He doesn't force people to believe what he thinks. He doesn't try to, force being a leader. No. Luffy leads by example, and that's the definition of it. So does Naruto and Goku. Goku and Naruto and Luffy, they don't be giving these long, crazy speeches about how they feel. No. They lead by action. They lead by getting shit done. Luffy's not going to tell you how he feels. He's just going to show you.
After leaving Windmill Village, Luffy instantly runs into a whirlpool. As he gets pulled in closer and closer, he casually assesses what can be done. He wonders if maybe he was a little careless. He looks around for help, but with no one there, he realizes that there's nothing he can do. Luffy starts to worry about the fact that he can't even swim due to his devil fruit abilities when he has a revelation. He cheerfully says, "What was I thinking? In a giant whirlpool, it doesn't really make a difference if you can swim or not," and he quickly relaxes. He wasn't giving up, he just came to terms with his lack of control. Knowing that he already did everything within his power, he welcomed whatever fate had in store. Luffy wants to be king of the pirates, as well as a mysterious second goal beyond that. What's important is that his peace of mind is not contingent on these desires coming to fruition. They are merely the motivations behind his true purpose.
They're motivations, but he doesn't need them. He's not completely attached to the king of the pirates, which is why he's made so much progress, because it's a detachment. He's not attached to the outcome of his goal. Yes, achieving his goal would be nice, but if he doesn't, it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens.
Living as freely as possible. He's in no rush to get anywhere other than what's already on the horizon. He is always present, never dwelling on the past or stressing over the future. He hardly even thinks, he just acts. Any thoughts are immediately expressed the second they arise. This is also because Luffy is driven by intuition. He interacts with everything through direct feeling. Luffy sails across a complicated, treacherous ocean and asserts simplicity. He pays no mind to labels, hierarchies, or societal conventions.
I ain't gonna lie, this was hard, bro. When that nigga said, "Nigga, I don't give a fuck with you, Whitebeard, nigga." Yo, that shit was hard, bro. He said, Whitebeard, straight up, "I'm king of the pirates." And Whitebeard is like, "My nigga." He started smiling. He literally said, "How saucy you are, bro." That was hard.
Perceived restrictions and external judgments are irrelevant to him. He acknowledges things for what they are on the surface, cutting through the noise with blunt and sincere innocence. His mind gets mistaken for being dim, but it is the very reason for his boundless joy. In his book, The Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu said, "The master gives himself up to whatever the moment brings. He knows that he's going to die, and he has nothing left to hold on to. No illusions in his mind, no resistances in his body. He doesn't think about his actions, they flow from the core of his being. He holds nothing back from life, therefore he is ready for death." I don't know about you, but to me that describes Luffy to a T. He radically accepts his circumstances. He's aware of his own mortality, and thus there is no tension between his nature and his being. He doesn't look at the world too deeply, which is precisely why he's able to make sense of it. He allows his most natural self to inform every action that he takes. Luffy welcomes his suffering, and so it holds no power over him. This is what Zen is all about, and it's who Luffy has always been. It's not something he studied, it's instinctual. He needs only his presence and compassion to show others the way. Alright, now let's talk about enlightenment. What exactly is it? What does it look like? Well, the answer differs slightly depending on the specific branch of Buddhism. Traditionally, it is something that happens only once. It is the complete and final release of suffering, as well as the cycle of rebirth. It takes a long time, sometimes multiple lives, and it's the last step before reaching nirvana. In Zen Buddhism, it is instead referred to as Satori. It is a form of kensho, which is a Zen phrase that roughly translates to seeing into one's true nature. Satori, unlike traditional enlightenment, can happen more than once. It's not the end of the path, it's merely a radical shift in one's perspective. It's unexpected clarity, internal transformation, and a breaking free from illusions such as fear, duty, or the ego. It's like a spark, a sudden realization. Satori can come about from a deep meditation, or it can come about from something insignificant like watching a bird in the sky. In One Piece, there are numerous examples of characters having a sudden awakening. The first one...
So I know episode 115, 1000, speak! Damn, nigga, speak! Episode 1015 is the best anime episode, or one of the best anime episodes ever, man.
That I want to talk about is when Koby meets Luffy. Koby was someone paralyzed by fear and inhibition. He was in constant suffering because his own mind prevented him from living the way he wanted to. But then Luffy comes along, someone with zero friction between his thoughts and actions. At first, Koby couldn't wrap his head around it. He practically lost his mind when he found out Luffy has the most insane dream known to man. Luffy didn't give him a clear answer to his confusion. He didn't tell Koby how to live. He only shared a glimpse into his way of being. But this was more than enough. In an instant, Koby's entire worldview was expanded. By merely observing Luffy, he was able to break free from his internal illusions. It wasn't a big final step of reaching spiritual freedom, aka nirvana, but it was the first bit of clarity that he needed. The next character I want to talk about is Zoro. At the beginning of the Baratie arc, he was self-centered, preoccupied with his ambition. He was loyal, but he had little concern for those around him when it came to his own desires. Obsessed with reaching an ideal future, he had closed himself off. After nearly dying during his fight with Mihawk, Zoro was suddenly struck by an epiphany. He didn't want to die because he had people that he wanted to support. This was enough for him to recognize the futility of his own behavior. In doing so, he was able to shed his attachments and make peace with the journey. Finally, Dr. Hirlo...
Love the process, bro. Don't be so attached to your goals. Goals are great, but love the process. Be in the moment, man.
Offers my...
Because there's truly... Once you realize that you can't control your past or your future, and that you can't influence it, the only thing you can really focus on is the present, man.
Favorite example of enlightenment in One Piece. It's akin to the legend of Buddha himself, who relinquished luxury after a series of eye-opening encounters.
Imagine being...
Nah, this is a really good video. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I may not be talking as much as I usually do, but that's because this is like, on videos like these, where it's like a long, informational kind of chill video, I'm actually taking notes, dude. I'm taking notes.
Before becoming a doctor, Hiruluk was a thief. One day, seemingly out of the blue, he contracted a fatal illness, and not even the greatest physicians could cure him. My interpretation of this has always been that what Hiruluk spoke of was actually a sickness of the heart. Since he had dedicated himself to thievery, we can assume that he was deluded by money and material possessions. He mentions it was only after he became wealthy that he developed his disease. Therefore, I think that what he was really suffering from was depression. Neither the thrill of his craft nor the riches he acquired made him happy. What ended up curing him was something unexpected. While passing by a mountain, he saw cherry blossoms so beautiful that he was completely relieved of his suffering. In his words, it was a magnificent sight that took his breath away. He abandoned his old thieving career and, brimming with compassion, decided to try and bring about that same experience for as many people as possible. Quick side tangent, remember Enel's priests in Skypiea? All of those guys were named after Buddhist concepts. The forest priest who fought Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp was named Satori. I don't think it necessarily means anything in this case, I just thought it was worth pointing out. Although, I doubt it was a coincidence that 4 characters referencing Buddhism were masters of mantra. I'll explain more in the next section. Earlier, I mentioned nirvana. Nirvana translates to blowing out or quenching, kind of like the act of extinguishing a flame. It means that one is extinguishing a prior, flawed set of beliefs to make room for a new one.
Yeah, it might be a thumbnail too.
Extinguishing a prior flawed set of beliefs to make room for a new one.
This is, I ain't gonna lie, this one of the coldest shots in the whole. Luffy just basking in the light. This is one of the best shots in all of One Piece. I ain't gonna lie.
Enlightenment is the gateway to nirvana. Zen Buddhism frames nirvana a little bit differently than its origins. It comes about during the practice instead of at the end of it. It's still inseparable from enlightenment though. To explain this in One Piece terms, we need to look no further than the treasure for which the series is named after. The One Piece is the ultimate truth. It's something that contains the insight to be able to grasp the hidden nature of reality. Only those who already grasp that nature can actually make it far enough to find it for themselves. This is made clear during the Straw Hats meeting with Rayleigh in Sabaody. He tells them the answer you will arrive at may be different from ours. Luffy refuses to hear more because the One Piece is not a valuable treasure unless you take the journey to see it for yourself. Like in Zen, one only discovers nirvana in the pursuit to find it, not after. Unlike most of the pirates on the sea, Luffy knows that becoming the Pirate King has nothing to do with wealth, fame, or power. It's about being the most free. Reaching the peak of spiritual liberation is what that incomprehensible mystery represents. It is because Luffy intuitively understands this that his dreams are inevitable. Much like Zen Buddhism's Taoist beliefs, the world of One Piece derives from an undeniable spiritual source. Zone devil fruits are described as having a will of their own, and it's even possible for inanimate objects to receive the benefits of their power. In Thriller Bark, we learned that every person has a shadow containing the characteristics of their spirit. Dr. Vegapunk, the smartest man to exist, deduced that the human soul is capable of being measured. Haki, one of the main power systems, works by harnessing and emitting one's own life energy. Most of all things are said to have a voice, some sort of intangible essence. Let's start by looking at Haki, or as I like to call it, weaponized aura farming. To learn how to use Haki.
Yeah, nigga, aura farming, bro. I got a vid coming up talking about sauciest characters in fiction part 2. This nigga's in that video.
Or as I like to call it, weaponized aura farming. To learn how to use Haki, one must learn how to flow. This is why we frequently see Luffy enter a meditative pose either while training or in battle. Observation Haki specifically is a lot like meditation. It relies on the user grounding themselves in the moment. Katakuri mentioned that you need to have a calm state of mind for Observation Haki to properly work. Mantra, the Sky Island name for it, literally refers to a Hindu and Buddhist method of aiding concentration. In Zen, there's a concept known as Mushin, which means no mind or empty mind. Mushin is mental clarity, calmness, and instinctual responsiveness. In order for someone to tap into Mushin, they must loosen their grip on their ego, fear, and any distracting thoughts. In doing so, their actions will become more spontaneous, reacting to the present as it changes around them. Characters that can consistently enter Mushin are those that can access the full potential of their Haki. They feel the flow of their own energy, and thus they can feel the flow of everything around them. This is actually a real thing practiced in martial arts and other forms of combat, by the way. In fact, the famous writer and swordsman Miyamoto Musashi was a big advocate for Mushin. If you didn't know, Musashi was one of Oda's primary inspirations for Zoro. It's not a coincidence that the philosophy of Mushin is so prominent, not only in One Piece's power system, but for Zoro specifically. He was one of the first people we ever see use Observation Haki when he defeated Mr. One. He was only able to learn how to cut steel with a state of mental purity, similar to Mushin. In the flashback to his childhood training days, Zoro's sensei tells him there are swordsmen out there that are able to cut nothing. During his fight in Alabasta, Zoro figures out that the strange sensation he's feeling is what his mentor was talking about. To be able to cut nothing, one must be nothing. I also think it's worth mentioning that Zoro's sensei teaches him with methods that are identical to Zen masters. He gives him a direct yet metaphorical demonstration and leaves his student to contemplate the lesson on his own. Anyway, it's often through the art of Mushin that Haki's potential is unlocked. When Zoro did it, he felt as if he could feel the presence of something alive coming from the objects around him. The rocks breathing, trees with heartbeats of their own, the earth itself breathing. What this tells us is that there is some sort of underlying force like the Tao flowing through the One Piece world. Haki is the manifestation of that force. The Tao is the source from which everything arises and returns to. All beings are an expression of the Tao. It's for this reason that Zen Buddhists believe in an entirely interconnected universe. Like the principle of yin and yang, there is an ebb and flow of balance that is constantly at work. The Tao maintains that balance, invisibly unifying everything that we see. Being able to hear the voice of all things is an ability that operates on the same idea. Voice in this context basically means the expression of one's soul, or to be more specific, their will. It is able to be heard coming from humans, animals, and even certain objects like the poneglyphs. Those who can hear the voice are those who have developed an intimate connection with the natural order. The voice of all things is key to understanding the metaphysics of One Piece. It contains the essence of life itself. It's something that not even the world government can destroy. Recognizing the interconnectedness of the Tao comes with the acknowledgement that our actions can have ripple effects that extend beyond the individual. In other words, a person's will can have tangible influences outside of the self. It can be transferred or inherited. The theme of inherited will goes hand in hand with Zen Buddhism's Taoist roots. The Tao allows fragments of one person's voice to flow to another. No one's voice can be erased completely because they all return to the same source. Some voices, like that of Joy Boy and the members of the D Clan, are able to resonate so strongly that they persist for centuries.
So we just got back from the most epic vacation.
Bro, spin. Bro, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Bro really talking his talk right now. I'm speechless, nigga. I'm out here. I'm locked in. I'm taking notes, but we focused.
The last thing I want to talk about is one of the most explicit examples of Zen philosophy in One Piece. Technically, it's not canon, but just hear me out. In the beginning of opening 25, displayed in the center of the frame, there's a circle made out of black ink. Inside, we see 20 years of flashing images from the beginning of Oden's backstory all the way to the liberation of Wano. It not only shows the epic scale of the arc, it captures how balance can shift over time due to the immortality of someone's voice. After the images fade, a light shines through the center of the circle, followed by Luffy. High in the sky, he revels in the form that he refers to as his most free. That circle is a Zen Buddhist art form called Enso. While this likely wasn't something Oda had any input in, I still think it was a fitting creative choice. The storyboard director for the opening, Megumi Ishitani, has proven that she knows One Piece very well. Episodes like 957, 982, 1015, and of course, Fan Letter beautifully encapsulate the thematic identity of the manga. Her use of the Enso circle in Wano's final
I ain't gonna lie, let her cook, bro. She responsible for the best One Piece episodes ever made.
Opening is yet another instance of her framing the heart of One Piece from a new angle. Like almost everything else that we've discussed so far, the Enso is both intuitive and direct. What you see here is pretty much all you need to know. In just one fluid motion, a person paints a black circle. Once it is done, the painting is left untouched. The result isn't the art here so much as the activity itself, although it certainly has its fair share of artistic interpretations. The circle has a couple different meanings. It can represent completeness or imperfection, depending on if it's closed or open. It can be interpreted as the Tao or the circle of life. What I want to talk about though is how the Enso circle captures the Japanese word mu. Mu translates to nothing or void. The circle and the space within it are symbolic of emptiness. In the context of Zen Buddhism, the void is not a bad thing. It is pure and peaceful. Mu is empty yet full. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the Reverie arc, but this is interesting because the main antagonist of One Piece is named Emu, and whenever Emu speaks in the third person, they call themselves Mu. I know there are a couple different interpretations of Emu's name, but it's possible that Mu in this context is meant to illustrate emptiness as an oppressive force, a vacuum that is devoid of compassion, diluted by the desire to control. On the flip side, you have characters like Luffy, Roger, Joy Boy, and countless other members of the D-Clan that live on the opposite end of that spectrum. These people are typically characterized as forces of nature that cannot be controlled. They depict Mu as a kind of freedom. They are free from illusions, free of mind, so their emptiness is natural and fulfilling. Perhaps Emu and those with the Will of D are an expression of the duality of Mu. Even after 800 years, rebellious figures like Joy Boy continue to appear. This could be why Nika is implied to be inevitable. From the words of Roger in chapter 100, as long as people hunger for freedom, inherited wills, dreams, and the ebb and flow of the ages will continue to exist. And there will always be people that hunger for freedom when there's a force whose purpose is to take it away. The other aspect of the Enso's symbolism that I want to discuss lies not in the image, but in the process. In order to create the Enso circle as it is intended, one must find brief harmony between body and mind. To exhibit Mu, one must embody Mushin. You let your body move on its own without thinking. This means that the Enso circle
ultra instinct, essentially, like a flow
is
state.
inherently an expression of the present. It symbolizes a moment in which the spirit is free to create. When you look at the painting, you are looking at an affirmation of the human experience, how it is both ephemeral yet eternal. This is the ideal state of being that the philosophy of Zen supports. It makes sense then in opening 25 that Luffy appears within the center of the Enso. By now, it should be clear that Luffy is someone who lives almost perpetually in Mu emptiness. But in Wano, his relationship with this mindset is taken to an entirely new level. Like the Enso, Gear 5 is the manifestation of effortless creativity. It was only because Luffy had cultivated this in the past that he was able to awaken his devil fruit in his fight with Kaido. Not only did he harmonize his mind and spirit, there was no longer any divide between his own will and the will of his fruit. Later, as Luffy becomes more accustomed to his new ability, he meditates, clearing out all distractions in order to reawaken it. Gear 5 is a representation of the Zen mind. It is absolutely spontaneous, thus it is the epitome of freedom.
You filming? Yep.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie, bro. I'm gonna have to check some of this dude's content out, boy. Anime and metaphysics are two of my favorite things to learn about. so this might be a regular channel to react to. I'm not even gonna hold you.
There's an old story about a Zen master who goes out one day for a walk and encounters a ferocious tiger. The master runs away out of fear. The tiger chases him all the way to the edge of a cliff and the master falls off. He catches a branch protruding from the side of the cliff, but it's too weak to support him for very long. The tiger remains waiting at the top of the cliff. When the master looks down, he sees another tiger just as hungry as the first. Certain death awaits him both above and below. He knows not what to do. Suddenly, he notices a wild, ripe strawberry growing from the same branch he hangs onto. He plucks it, eats it, and says, "This lovely strawberry, how sweet it tastes." Here's another story. There was once a boy who set out to sea to
That nigga must have died. Okay. That nigga dead, bro.
make his dreams come true. While stopping at an island, he encounters a vengeful pirate crew led by a corrupt clown. They surround the boy and, before he has time to react, trap him at the top of an execution platform. His enemies have him cornered. He has no means of escape. The clown raises his sword, aiming to kill the boy once and for all. At first, the boy struggles and calls for help. Suddenly, he looks ahead of him, notices his friends, and says, "Sorry, I'm a goner," with a massive grin on his face. Zen is not about finding answers. It's about feeling them. It's not about getting somewhere, it's about traveling well. Worries about the future and regrets from the past obscure the sweetness of the present. We can't control everything that happens to us, and by resisting undesirable outcomes, we only create more suffering. This doesn't mean that we should be passive, renouncing all emotions. In his 1967 lecture called Zen Bones, Alan Watts said Buddhas are human, and that the point is that they are not afraid to be human. They are not afraid to let themselves participate in the pains, difficulties, and struggles that naturally go with human existence. The way of Zen is not aloofness, it is a wholehearted embrace. Luffy figured all of this out before society could tell him otherwise. He derives his wisdom directly from the source. He perfected the art of listening to the music of life, allowing himself to freely dance along to the rhythm. He may not be a disciplined monk, but he acts with the same intent. His definition of freedom is fundamentally aligned with the Zen ideology. In order to thrive in a world dominated by water, you must know how to ride the waves. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this video gave you some new perspective on both One Piece and Zen Buddhism. If you have any thoughts brewing about some of the
Hey, this is a fantastic video. I ain't gonna lie. This is a good one, bro. I ain't gonna lie. This dude hella underrated, bro. But that being said, it's your boy Jay. Stay healthy, stay wealthy, and stay blessed. And I'm out.